russosbrand.com, where the pros are the pros. The brilliant Taeler Hendrix.
Concussions. Somebody wanted me to do more about concussions. So I actually did some counting, and I believe I have 8 concussions. My first concussion was in a training class where we were working out in a 6-sided ring, but I was training one of those, I think in Rhode Island or in Massachusetts. I can't really remember where. And we were doing this drill that had to do with running the ropes while another person does a leapfrog over you. And I think it was part of a 5, 5, and 5 drill, if anybody knows what that is. Well, this kid was put into wrestling because he had anger issues, which, I mean, it doesn't change anything or whatever, but just a little backstory. And he didn't really understand how powerful he was, especially when he's enraged and, you know, stuff like that. So he had a lot of behavioral issues, and he was over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds. So he's a big guy, you know, and so he really needed some way to channel that sort of energy into something constructive and positive and stuff. And for a lot of people, that's wrestling. And so this is the person I was paired up with for this drill. And well, at the time, I've shrunk now, but I was 5'7" at the time. So, you know, there's only so low I can, you know, shrink down in order to run for the leapfrog, right? So just for a visual perspective here. So my first concussion, he's supposed to do the leapfrog and I'm supposed to go underneath him. So we're supposed to go like this, right? Well, that did not happen. Instead, he came down, he barely jumped, and I couldn't scooch down anymore because I still needed to move, you know, underneath, right? And his whole body came down onto my head, and my head went into the mat. So that was my first concussion. One of my friends at the time, who was also in the training class, actually drove me to the ER, and he told me that I was like talking to these imaginary grasshopper people that were living on the side of the chair. That's what he told me. I don't remember any of it. But that was my first concussion. My second concussion was at an indie show. I was about only a couple months in. I was in a mixed tag match. So it was a guy and a girl and me and another guy, right? And before the match, we had practiced a Frankensteiner off the top. I think this is the instance where I figured out I'm kind of not going to be Lita. It was kind of like one of those, you know, self-realization moments of like some of your limitations, like, oh, let's not be stupid. That was one of those moments. So we did the Frankensteiner before the show. Everything was great. Off the top rope, it was awesome. So in the match, I'm on the top rope. I jump. I land on the guy's shoulders. I sit on his shoulders like I'm supposed to. He was a really tall guy too. I'm really surprised he didn't make it a lot farther in wrestling because he really did have a lot of the tools for it. He had the build and everything that WWE looks for. But anyway, he just dips me like this. Like he pulls me up and dips me on my head. So my whole body goes. And my partner at the time was like, get up, you got more spots to do. I'm concussed out of my mind. So that was the second concussion. My third concussion came from probably one of my scariest concussions that I still deal with the aftermath today. What happened was a girl got me sitting in the middle of the ring with my legs out in front of me, and I'm sitting up straight after I've taken like some sort of like snap mirror or something like that. They sit you up because that's the proper way you're supposed to land and then sit up. And then she's behind me and she kicks me right at the base where my skull meets my neck, right at the upper cervical area. I went paralyzed from the waist down. I couldn't feel anything. Everything went black, and then like shards of like broken glass rainbow colors is how I guess I would describe it. And while I'm coming to the realization that I can't feel my feet and I can't move, comes the realization of, oh shizit, I'm feeling my brain move and I can't do anything about it. Like I literally felt this thing in my head go. So what happened was she kicked me from behind. The velocity of that pushed my brain forward in my skull somehow. And then it hit the front of my skull and came back this way and hit the back of my skull and then went like this and kind of settled back in. I could feel all of that happening while I can't see, and then all of a sudden it's flashes of colors and I can't move my feet. Well, she does that exact same thing in the exact same spot again, right there at the upper cervical part where your skull meets your neck. And all the same symptoms happen all over again. And the last thing I feel is my brain going like this. That was a really, really awful, terrible, would never recommend doing that ever. And I didn't even want to do it to begin with. I was wrestling a veteran. That was awful. That was awful. Another one of my concussions, I was wrestling a guy at a tryout seminar that I had paid to go to, and he's awesome. I still have nothing but respect for him and his wife and the family they've made and all the goals and things he's accomplished in the business. This isn't hating on him at all. I still have tons of respect for him. He was actually at my WWE tryout and got signed, so like, he'll always have a special place in my heart. I was wrestling with him, and he was treating me like he would a guy, which in wrestling as a girl, you're taught that when a guy does that, it's respect. But a lot of people have very mixed feelings on that. Well, he came and did a big running knee to me in the corner and got me so hard in the face, it just knocked me the heck out. I didn't get to finish the seminar that weekend. Anything physical related. Another concussion I got was at an indie show in Ohio. This really awesome Canadian chick, she had so much ups. When a lot of girls say they do a crossbody off the top, they don't really got that longevity like a long dart. They just really don't. They just go boop. Well, and that's what I was expecting. But this girl, man, she took off like a long dart, and I was like, holy crap. So then I had to like sell backwards to make sure that I could get her for it, and we come down together. Well, my pedaling backward and making sure I caught her snug so we could bump together ended up with me going boom and hitting my head backlash against the mat, which is partly on me. I should have been like, hey, like how far out. So ever since then, I was always like, how far out do you go? I never assume that anymore, never. And I had a whole nother match later that night. I had 2 matches on that show, so that was kind of rough. Another concussion I had was at ROH when I got hit in the back of the head with a steel chair that I didn't know was coming to my head. It wasn't supposed to hit me in the head. It was supposed to hit me in my back, and that's why I had my elbows tucked in and out in front of me. And Mandy comes down from behind and hits me in the back. And the way you're supposed to do that so you don't shatter your elbows is to tuck your elbows in and have them out in front of you. And so that's what I did. And I'm on the outside of the ring with my own chair. But for whatever reason, I get smacked in the back of the head instead of the back. And so I was kind of on Dream Street at that point. And then she puts me in the ring, and I take just a terrible DDT on a chair. And somebody was like, oh, she doesn't know how to wrestle. It's like, no, I would have taken that for her, but I was just out of it. I was not fully present. I was deep in my own head and my own thoughts at that point. I was on Dream Street. And then this also happens to be the one time like ever that Sumi has a crooked moonsault, because she has a beautiful moonsault. That girl, it looks so insanely awesome. It is a sexy moonsault. And for whatever reason, it was crooked that day, and she lands on my head. So it's like chair to the back of the head, DDT on a steel chair to the face, no hands up, and then a moonsault onto my face. And of course, Mama Hendrix was in the crowd that night, and it was just like, oh, out of all the shows she could have gone to, this is the one. So that happened. Oh yeah, and then there was a concussion that happened in California where I had a girl in a front face lock, and I grapevine my legs around her waist. It's kind of like a grappling sort of thing, and I have her like this, and I have her head down in here, front face lock, grapevine around the waist, and she turns it into a Northern Lights suplex from that position. And Shannon was there. I miss her so much. Well, I just got put right onto the top of my head, just like this, boom. And then she picks me up, because that's what was called, and she does it again. I'm out. I don't remember a darn thing for at least 8 minutes. We finished the match exactly how we called it. I have no idea, because I was out on my feet. I have no idea, but I've seen some of the footage, and we hit the time cue and everything, because it was a contest. The whole show, it was like a women's tournament thing, and we had to hit a time cue for her to hit her whatever her finisher was at the time. That was really bad. That had me speaking gibberish, and I had to go on a plane to WWE the next morning. I had to be up for 3 days. The concussion was so bad. I did everything that you're not supposed to do, but I really wanted to make it to WWE that day. It was really, really, really bad. Really bad. And there's a couple more too that I think I'm forgetting. But yeah, when you have any head trauma, I mean, it could even be just one. I saw somebody live get a concussion that resulted in a hematoma, which means swelling and bleeding in the brain. That was terrifying. That was really, really scary. And that's kind of a waking nightmare of being a professional athlete that a lot of people don't talk about, but they have so much more research now that links it to Alzheimer's, dementia, schizophrenia, CTE, chronic concussion syndrome, all kinds of things that, really affect your mental health with depression and mood swings and anger issues and rage. And And it also gives you these deficits over time where it affects your problem solving skills, your memory skills, your comprehension and communication skills. That's why keeping your brain very active, especially after trauma, but even just in general, is a good rule of thumb, along with eating certain types of foods that will help the best way you can to prevent things like dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. So that's a lot of the stuff I do now. I do all kinds of reading and puzzles and all kinds of, problem solving skills just to try to keep what I've still got. Because you just, it's a reality that that's a possibility for a lot of workers, especially in the business now, because they do so much more risky things.